Hello, fellow Murdlers. Today is Saturday, April 6th, 2024, and it's a great day to solve a murder. Today we have deductive logico in the case of the murdered pretender to the throne, and to solve it, we will have a detective's notebook with 6 4x4 grids with suspects, motives, locations, and weapons. We will have statements today. So as we have 4 suspects, each of those suspects has a statement here. We know that one of them must be telling a lie, and whomever is telling the lie is our murderer today. Everyone else must be telling the truth. So we'll be looking for the statement that is a lie that allows everything else to be true. That's how we'll solve our mystery today. We also will have our clues and evidence, but before we get into those, let's check out our suspects. We have Silverton the Legend, Principal Applegreen, Babyface Blue, and Officer Copper. The weapons today are a crazed squirrel, a ghost projector, an old heavy tome, and karate hands. And our locations today are the Great Hall, the moat. Funny story, there was a video a few weeks back where I had no idea what this icon was, and I was like, it's like a chili pepper with arms. I just realized it's an alligator, so now we know. A secret chamber and the spooky woods, and our motives are to rage with jealousy, to silence a witness, to win an argument, or to inherit a fortune. All right, let's go ahead and dive into our clues and evidence. Officer Copper had never been in the moat. All right, so we can find the moat location, suspect Officer Copper, those intersect here, so we'll mark that with an X and we can cross this off. A Leo had the crazed squirrel. So I know that Silverton the Legend is a Leo from past puzzles, but let's just make sure we don't have any other Leos in the group. We do not. Okay, so we can say that Silverton the Legend had the crazed squirrel. Great. The person with a ghost projector wanted to win an argument. All right, so we can say for that motive and that weapon, it's going to be this, to win an argument. All right. The person with karate hands wanted to rage with jealousy. Karate hands is probably my favorite weapon in this puzzle. Not like this one, but just Murdle in general. I love karate hands. I think it's so funny. Okay, and they wanted to rage with jealousy. Okay, so for these two, we don't know who had these weapons, but we do know what their motives were. And because we know this, we actually also know a bit more about Silverton the Legend, because we know that Silverton the Legend had the crazed squirrel. That means that Silverton the Legend's motive was neither to win an argument nor to rage with jealousy, so we can put those in here. And again, the reason we know that is because those are associated with these weapons, which Silverton the Legend did not have, and therefore he cannot have these motives. So we can get that additional information there. And finally, our last clue today, an anonymous source passed a message saying Babyface Blue wanted to inherit a fortune. Okay, so this will also, I think, help us with our motives. So we can say this was Babyface Blue's motive, which is, I think, yep, that'll give us Silverton the Legend's motive too. Great. And that also tells us which weapons Babyface Blue did not have. So Babyface Blue could not have had the ghost projector, and Babyface Blue could not have had karate hands, which means Babyface Blue must have had the old heavy tome. And again, that's because we know the weapons associated with these motives, and we also know that Babyface Blue's motive is not associated with either of those. So that means that Babyface Blue could not have either of those. Because we know Silverton the Legend had the crazed squirrel, it means Babyface Blue could not. So process of elimination, Babyface Blue must have had the old heavy tome. All right, so that's all we have for our clues and evidence. I'm gonna go ahead and hit save here. We have pretty much no information around the location other than knowing where Officer Copper wasn't, but we'll just have to. I'm missing 2 here, so let me resave that. Otherwise, I think I've got it. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through these one by one at first and just see if any of them must be true or must be false based on what we've already found here. And then if we don't see anything that's immediately sticking out to us, what I always recommend is going one by one, assuming each person is telling a lie. So essentially putting the inverse of their statement in the grid, seeing how that plays out. And then if that works, then we know we found our murderer. And if it doesn't, we know we need to move on. But the other thing that does is it tells us that that statement must be true. So we can go ahead and enter that in the grid. So that's kind of how we go through this gradually and find a solution. So again, let's start by just going through and seeing if anything must be true or must be false. Principal Applegreen did not bring a ghost projector. That's certainly possible, but we don't know yet, so that could be true, it could be false. Babyface Blue was in a secret chamber. Again, we don't really have any location information, so that certainly could be possible. Karate Hands was in a secret chamber. Ooh, okay, so these two automatically have my eye. The reason is that if Karate Hands were in the secret chamber, that would mean that Babyface Blue could not be in the secret chamber. So one of these two must be the lie. So we can probably actually start here, but let's keep going just in case. All right. Principal Applegreen was in the Great Hall. That's certainly possible. Again, we don't have any location information. And this could be true, and these both relate to Principal Applegreen, but it could be true that Principal Applegreen did not have a ghost projector and was in the Great Hall, because the ghost projector could be assigned to Officer Copper perhaps, and Principal Applegreen could definitely be in the Great Hall. So again, I think we're looking at these two. Normally I would go down the line, but because these two are clearly in conflict with one another, I think we can start with Principal Applegreen. So what I'm going to do before I get into that is I'm going to assume this one is correct and that this one is correct. And then we'll go through from there. Okay, so I'm going to mark these into the grid and then save the grid with that. Okay, Principal Applegreen did not bring a ghost projector. Okay, so that would mean that Officer Copper did bring a ghost projector and that Principal Applegreen had the Karate Hands. Then let's assume this is also true. Principal Applegreen was in the Great Hall. So I'll go ahead and mark that in. And again, the reason I'm doing this is that these two seem to be kind of disconnected from these two, which are in direct conflict with one another. So that tells me that the lie is probably one of these two, and these two are more than likely going to be the truths. Remember that it's a greater chance that something is true. We've only got one lie, so out of the 4, there's only 1 lie and 3 truths. So these two look like they have to be true. I feel like that's a safe bet. So that's why I'm making this assumption here. I am going to hit save, but we'll know what we need to undo if we need to do that later. So let's start by assuming Principal Applegreen is the murderer today and that this is a lie. So let's say Babyface Blue was not in the secret chamber. And then that would mean that Karate Hands was in the secret chamber. Okay, that doesn't work because we've assigned Karate Hands to Principal Applegreen. So I'm gonna undo that. Really just one check, but it's fine. So let's say this is true. Babyface Blue was in the secret chamber. That would put Officer Copper in the spooky woods and Silverton the Legend in the moat. And Karate Hands was in a secret chamber. Karate Hands... Wait, no, this is the lie, right? So everything else works with this, I believe. Yep, this is our solution. Okay, so again, the reason I did this was, again, typically I would just go line by line if there was nothing that stood out, but these two were obviously in direct conflict with one another, based on what we'd already found in the grid, or in the detective's notebook. So with that, I knew that the lie had to be between one of these, and that the other things must be true. So I put these into the puzzle just to make sure that those were reflected as truths. And I tried making this false, and that didn't work. So this one had to then also be true. So I assumed then that these 3, Babyface Blue, Principal Applegreen, and Silverton the Legend were telling the truth, and Officer Copper was the murderer and the liar. And that worked. That fit into everything. So I'm going to go ahead and make our accusation Officer Copper with a ghost projector in the spooky woods to win an argument. So I'll go ahead and flip that over, but before I do that, I'm just going to take a moment, fill out the rest of my grid, make sure everything's looking correct. Okay, there's our grid all filled out and solved. Everything's looking correct, so I think this is our answer. But let's go ahead and see if we were right. All right, we were right. Thanks so much for playing along with me today. I hope this was a helpful walkthrough, and we'll see you tomorrow.